Sometimes, the biggest accomplishments come accompanied by the deepest fights. There are men who were born with extraordinary strength, but who live chained to their own weaknesses. Men who can tear down walls, but cannot defeat their passions. Samson's story is not just that of a powerful judge, but that of a soul divided between the call of God and the whispers of the flesh. A story marked by miracles, wrong decisions, and a final redemption that brings together siglos afterward. Today we will explore the life of this man, chosen from the environment to liberate his people. But he spent much of his life chained to his own impulses. Samson's story reminds us that the true strength is not in the muscles, but in the surrendered heart. That the fall is not the final, when God has the last word. It's a story that mixes the human with the divine, the tragic with the heroic, the violent with the sacred. Samson was one of the men and women of Israel, men and women elected by God in times of crisis to guide, protect, and liberate the people from oppression. His birth was announced by an angel to a sterile woman with clear instructions. The baby should be born from birth. This meant a consecrated life, not drinking wine, not touching dead things, not cutting your hair. This vow represented separation, total dedication to God, a visible and spiritual sign that your life had a higher purpose. Since he was little, Samson was distinct. His strength was supernatural, a direct gift from God. But I was also an impulsive, emotional, and often reckless man. He fell in love with intensity, became disgusted with fury, and often acted without measuring the consequences. Its history is a mixture of glory and tragedy, of impressive military victories and profound personal defeats. He was a separate man, but he was not always obedient, blessed, but not always wise. Samson lived in a dark time for Israel. The town had to move away from God and was under the oppression of the Philistines, an enemy town that had been invaded and dominated several regions. In this context, God rose as temporal leaders, not kings, as charismatic liberators. Each judge represented a divine response to oppression, a reminder that even in the midst of collective disobedience, God did not forget his people. Unlike other games, Samson often performed alone. I was not a political strategist, nor a leader of multitudes. I was a solitary warrior, guided by the Spirit, but also by his emotions. His physical strength makes him feared by his enemies, but his spiritual weakness makes him vulnerable. It was like a volcano, impressive on the outside, but dangerous on the inside. His relationship with God was intermittent, often more intuitive than deliberate. Samson had relationships with Philistine women, something prohibited for a consecrated Israelite. His desire for Delilah in particular would be his loss. Even though he had been called to liberate his village, his heart became entangled with those who had to be defeated. Its history reflects a constant struggle between divine purpose and human passions. I was someone who knew power, but I was not always in my own domain. Your life poses a crucial question to us. What good is external strength if there is no inner firmness? Samson's relationships were complex and often destructive. Since his youth, he's been attracted to Philistine women, which caused tension with his priests and conflicts with his people. His first marriage ended in betrayal, revenge, and death. A chain of violence began that was itself unleashed, causing personal wars that impacted the entire nation. But it was Delilah who marked her destiny with more strength. Delilah, probably under pressure from the Philistine leaders, seduces him to discover the secret of his strength. After several attempts, Samson managed to reveal his Nazarene vote. While he slept, he cut his hair. The strength is gone, the Spirit of God left, and Samson was captured, chained, and humiliated. What was a sacred secret was delivered by desire and misplaced trust. But even in defeat, Dios was not finished with him. In his solitude, blinded and enslaved, Samson began to remember who he was. His hair grew, a symbol that his consecration could be restored. At that moment, his most important relationship was not with Delilah nor with his people, but with God. In a final act of faith, I cried out for one last opportunity. I went to that place of humiliation where my greatest act of faith and obedience was born. Samson was a judge for 20 years, and in that time he accomplished impossible hazards. He killed a lion with his brothers, defeated 1,000 Philistines with a donkey's butt, tore down the doors of a city, destroyed enemy fields. His life was a constant demonstration of the power of God, acting through a fragile man. Each feat of his was not to exalt his name, but to testify that God continued to be the defender of Israel, even in times of spiritual darkness. But his greatest contribution was not in his victories, but in his final. In the temple of Dagon, surrounded by enemies, Samson prayed, "Lord, save me. May it be once more." And God, I heard it. With his arms extended between the columns, he tore down the temple, and with it thousands of Philistines. I lived with them, but I fulfilled my purpose. It was an act of redemption, a final sacrifice that closed the cycle of his meaningful life. This act on the ground was physical. I was spiritual. It was the redemption of a man who, in the end, understood that his strength never belonged to him, that the greatest victory was not about your enemies, it was about your pride. His death was his greatest act of obedience. And through her, God freed Israel once more. I was not only remembered for what I did, but for how I ended, with faith, with delivery, with a prayer that only crossed the siglos. Samson was a man of contrasts, valiant but vulnerable, powerful but impulsive, hidden but distracted. His physical strength was only a part of his story. What really marks his legacy is his internal process, from arrogant hero to broken servant. His life shows that those who do can open doors, but only character sustains the mission. He was passionate, emotional, charismatic. He was neither a strategist nor a wise man, but it was an instrument. Even though I fell many times, I never stopped being called. Your life teaches us that things done without character can destroy us, but the grace of God is capable of redeeming even our most shameful falls. Samson's story is not to glorify his strength, but to reveal the loyalty of a God who does not laugh at his chosen ones. Samson's story confronts us. What do you do with the gifts that God gave you? Have you allowed your weaknesses to be stronger than you called? Have you surrendered to your passions, forgetting your purpose? Samson fell, yes, but it was also restored, because God does not wish those who speak. Rebuild them from the ruins. In his final act, Samson demonstrated that it is not too late to return to God, to recover his purpose, to surrender completely. And you, are you willing to extend your arms like Samson and say, "Lord, once more"? If this story touches your heart, subscribe to the channel for more stories that inspire faith. And we say in the comments, what did you learn from Samson's life, the judgment that found his true strength in his performance?